early with Spirit of Matter on a Saturn day and a Mars hour. The ascendant is right on Jupiter in Taurus, Venus ruled, with Venus in the 6th house, 27 degrees, and Mars is in the 8th house in Sagittarius. The midheaven is ruled by Saturn, with Saturn in the 11th house, and we are talking about Mercury ingressing into Capricorn. So, Moon is in 10 degrees Leo. Yes, trining the Sun in exactly 10 degrees Sagittarius, so Sun on Taurus in the 8th house. And we talked about in our December video about the retrograde motion of Mercury in Capricorn. But now let's talk about a Mercury Capricorn. So let's give a first and timeless teaching, which is what I like to do upon ingresses. Mercury, children, speech, contracts, technology, to some extent electricity, okay, electrical devices, and words, we said communication, small things like pictures or paintings, we said children, but also people of trade, of business, and judgment, okay, legislation as well. It rules the kind of trickery, the know-how with words, the wit of words, as well as chemistry, okay, as the ruler of Virgo. So chemistry, the nervous system and digestion, the connection between nervous system and digestion. Capricorn. So Capricorn is Saturn ruled. Capricorn rules the mountain. It's climbing and the climbing of the mountain. So it rules cold places, high places, hierarchical places, where nature governs, and the winter. Okay, Sun in Capricorn is during the Western winter. It rules over the dedicated, measured process that makes progress in a very perhaps unforgiving environment. Okay, where every small step could get you to die, to freeze to death, or to fall to your death, or to be devoured by animals. Okay, it's very not much the environment that we would think to take our children to play around in, and so it definitely rules the planning that is needed to climb a mountain. Okay, and the dedication, the lifelong journey, so it rules over longevity of a time. We could also see through the passage of Saturn, takes 28 years to surround the zodiac, versus Mercury, which is the closest to the Sun, and it takes, it's about a year, I think, to go over the zodiac, I think even less. And how different these two operate. Okay, because with Saturn, you need long-term planning for your journey. You're going to climb a mountain. What are you going to wear? What are you going to eat? You cannot open something and leave it in nature. Where are you going to treat your trash? Every single detail needs to be calculated. But Mercury is small things, it's also small details, and Mercury is adaptability. Okay. And so this Saturn land or Capricorn land and Mercury connect on the resourcefulness, the cunning, and the trickery that you need to just manage in a supposedly unforgiving environment. Why am I saying supposedly? Saturn also rules orthodoxy in religion, and one of the orthodox in religion beliefs is that if you think about how Orthodox people treat children, they believe that you bring children and the wealth to grow them comes together with the children if needed be. Okay? It doesn't mean that you don't plan ahead, but you also don't avoid getting ahead in life or proceeding or continuing life because you have this faith, this strong orthodox faith in the understanding that you go out into the cold and God will bring the things that you need with you on the journey. Your job is to make the steps and to take on these things and to do the planning and to also have the help of the divine, because Saturn does govern orthodox religion, traditional science, going with the ancients and connecting with the wisdom of the ancients. Okay, this is important because people tend to think that Capricorn is about the cold, harsh, rigid reality of life that is unforgiving, and that's it. No. No. It is very religious and it is very spiritual as well. Okay, people do go into these retreats, these long meditations, to the mountain climbing journey. They need to have a certain type of faith where they are one with some sort of, whether it's nature or divinity or something that keeps them going. And this is Saturn, not even Jupiter. This is Saturn, okay? Mercury's role, the way Mercury connects with this is, first of all, the childlike curiosity, okay? Daddy, where are you going? Because Saturn is daddy. I can't take you with me. We're going to climb a mountain. What do you mean you can't take you with me? You are just a child. I can't take you with me. And Mercury says, but I will come with you. No, it's very cold out there, but I will wear my coat. Okay. Whereas if you told this child to go to school, this child would say, no, I'm sick, it's very wintry today. Okay, but then the father says, I'm going to climb a mountain. Child wears, okay, wears the coat, the gloves, everything. But what will we eat on the mountain? Child, I will make the dinner. Look, here is an apple, here is this. Oh, but the bears will come and they will take it. Okay, I will close it in the box. But how can I take you with me? We don't have enough fuel. Or we don't have enough vehicles or whatnot. Oh, here I bring my bikes. Okay, and then they go out the door and they go to this journey, and the child is sure that they are going to climb a mountain, and they go out in the freezing cold, and they make one step and then two steps, and when the child is like, we're going to climb a mountain, and eventually the father takes this child as high up the hill, and there is a door, and they said, what is in there in the door? And the father says, oh, we have arrived, and now I will have to let you enjoy the place for a while, and then I come to take you back. And the child is at the kindergarten or the school or whatnot, because the child was sure we are going to climb a mountain, so he got ready for the journey. Okay, this story is really about the trickery of the Mercury Capricorn. We are going to do something very, very difficult, but there is some sort of a sense of adventure along this, where you, the child that literally would not have a chance to withstand in this harsh environment, say, I want to go with you. I want to climb this mountain. And so there is trickery that relates to doing those things of Saturn. This must be done. If you want to climb a mountain, oh, you must dress up. If you want to climb a mountain, oh, you must take enough food with you, and food must be close so that the bears won't eat you. And you must take your vehicle with you, or you must do this, or you must work, so you will have the money to do this. But there is the pinnacle of that mountain that stands, like all of those little things that we need to do, they become like small details. Because we're climbing a freaking mountain. And the conjoining of these archetypes of Mercury and Saturn can give for a very successful duo. Depends on how are they aspected, because Mercury is about doing something, then doing it again, then doing it again, and Saturn is the same. So they connect here. If Mercury is kind of like the innovation, okay, so you build an aircraft. When you build an aircraft the first time, probably you cannot fly with this. Probably cannot lift off. Okay? But the Saturn is kind of like, yes, you need to fix this, or you need to fix this, or you know what, I'm going to give you some more time. So you will think for yourself, what do you think needs to be fixed here? And you go and you try it again, but you know that you're going to build an airplane. And with Saturn, you are not imagining that you're going to build an airplane. Okay, the kid that says, Daddy, I want to come with you to climb this mountain, this daddy is not going to leave this kid without having achieved the climbing of the mountain. And this is also important because this Saturn, we think Saturn is this stern, as this rigid, as this, but Saturn is the planet that gives you the teaching of how to reach that pinnacle of that mountain. It's very powerful. It's very powerful. So to have that natally in your chart, it means that when it comes to your thinking, to your communication, or to your innovation, if it's something technological or engineering that you do, to your expression, okay? Yes, there are things to be considered, but it's about understanding which mountain am I climbing here. And then you do the things you need to do because you understand what the bigger picture is. And the bigger picture is that you're climbing a freaking mountain. You're coming with Daddy to climb that mountain. And this is a childlike experience, an environment that can be very harsh and cold, but also there is a mountain to climb. But if you know from childhood that you're climbing the mountain and you can envision the mountain, then perhaps from a very young age, depending on where your Saturn is, right now Saturn is in Pisces in the 11th house, you can, from a very young age, work on this climbing of that mountain. As a transit, it simply means that the mountain that we're climbing, yes, it is high, but the transit is only so much. Okay, and now let's look at where Mercury is going to be. Yeah, we are going to go for the monthly astral calendar. And well, Mercury enters, yes, Mercury enters Capricorn on December 1st. And it, yes, leaves Capricorn on December 23rd. Let's see. Okay, so we will have Mercury traveling. Let's begin to see its retrogradation. Mercury will be traveling until December 13 through Capricorn. It will reach the 8th degree and then will go retrograde. And then will basically re-ingress into Sagittarius. So we are having a direct motion, and then we're going back, and then we go back all the way to the previous sign. What it means is that for Mercury to go through this passage of the mountain, it will need to do it over, and it will need to do it over so much as to go to the previous sign, to where it was in Sagittarius, and to take some wisdom there and to go back along the road. So when you climb mountains, is basically you're doing very much the same thing. Okay, climbing upwards, and then you have to spend the night. So sometimes you have to decline a little bit and find a place to stay. Okay, and you always do it with a declination, because this is, if you're, let's say, running, then you run a marathon. So you don't do it the extra mile here because you won't have the stamina. This is why Saturn is so much about rest, more so than it's about work. Saturn is about the careful planning of your step and then taking those steps little by little, seeing, is it what I thought this to be? What needs to be changed? Okay, you're working very slowly and steadily and you're redoing. Okay, it's a very tedious work. So right now, throughout December, we are having Mercury in Capricorn between now and the 23rd of December. Okay, Mercury will return to Capricorn to finish up with its process next month. And so we only have 8 degrees to go. Very much in the spirit of Mercury Capricorn. Now let's look a bit at what Mercury does in Capricorn. So it sextiles Saturn December 2nd, which I think was already today. Yes, December 2nd. So today it sextiles Saturn in Pisces and separates from a square to Neptune and separates from a sextile to Venus. So right now is an excellent time to talk about Mercury Saturn because they have a sextile, so it's sextiling the ruler. This is a great time to understand the deeper meaning of this journey of Mercury Capricorn, both in general and in praxis. Saturn the ruler is at Pisces land, so Pisces is philosophizing, Pisces is your medicine, Pisces is your drugs, Pisces is the ocean, Pisces is creativity, spies, a leaking of information, missing people or missing children, and so on and so forth. So there is a good connection between the ruler and Mercury, so that Mercury knows why and how it's supposed to do what it came here to do. And then we're going to have right on this, the next angle is going to be on December 8th, which is Mercury trining Jupiter, with Jupiter being in Taurus. And Venus is going to apply to sextile this Mercury as well, when Venus is the ruler of Jupiter. So while Venus and Jupiter are going to have this opposition, with Venus being in Scorpio, which is a sign of a detriment, okay, the opposite sign that she's ruling, we're going to have this Mercury kind of mitigating things through practical communication. Mercury is about, again, it's both about the understanding the grand vision of why are we doing this, but also about the very act of doing this. And sometimes the doing of the climbing of a mountain is mainly looking at your feet and hiding yourself from the view because you have wind. Okay, so you're in the process of things. You think about writing a screenplay for a movie, which is very much Saturn Pisces thingy, and watch or having an idea for a screenplay for a movie or watching a movie. Okay, when you write a screenplay, so you begin with describing the scene, and there is a structure. There is a particular format because you have to write in the format, and you need to know where you're applying to, okay, who you're going to work with, what format do they require. Better to know this before, because otherwise you'll have to re-edit your whole thing. And we haven't even touched what you're writing. This is screenwriting. By the way, what I was doing when I was in my teenage years for about a decade. So you can see how a person can retire after that. So the building of the constituents, and here on December 8th, whatever Jupiter is rethinking about in Taurus, which have to do ideas and religion, land, and big crops like I bought an Israeli pomegranate today, which was the first time in my life, because usually they do it for export, and it was so big. It's just so big, and I was like, Jupiter has definitely been in Taurus this year. Both my yield of passion fruit was big, but this huge, it's like I haven't seen anything like this. It's almost the size of the head of a baby. And it was quite fascinating. I'm sure it's going to be also tasty and sweet because of this Jupiter. And Jupiter retrograde is kind of rethinking our finances, our connection, our art, our values, our land, our connection to the land, okay? Israel, Ukraine, Belgium are very much on a mundane level called in to rethink their connection, with a religious connection to the land, and how are they going to express or not express this, and that can be a situationship, especially when Venus here is in Scorpio, which is the sign of psychological crisis, transformation. For example, if you look at, what is the connection of Israel to the land of Israel? Well, there were the Israelites that lived in so and so in the Bible, and the Venus Scorpio is kind of like a Russian imported sex worker that was trafficked to Israel with the promise that she can have a better job. And she's like, the fuck are you guys talking about? This is actually true. There were people that were imported to Israel to be sex trafficked in the promise that they are coming to the promised land. Okay, they will have some jobs, some this and that. It's just true. It's happening in many countries, also the Holy Land. So what do you do? Mercury in Capricorn finds a way to mitigate this situation, being extremely practical. Okay, Mercury in Capricorn can have to do on a mundane level with also realpolitik, unfortunately, because it has taken a lot of toll of a lot of life. But Mercury Capricorn is practical. This is the cold, harsh reality that we must deal with if we want a livable, sustainable world. And sometimes this cold, harsh reality that we must deal with is making the world impossible. So that can be the case. This can also be on a more personal level. If you think Jupiter and Venus is kind of like your philosophy of relationship versus like your sexuality, and then Mercury comes and finds a trick. Okay, a trick that allows these oppositions to exist somehow, to coexist. And the trick comes from the Capricorn land with Saturn in Pisces, which is also related to Jupiter. So there is a trick around our philosophy and our religion that we do in order to sustain this opposition. And this is it for Mercury direct. Okay, this is as much Mercury direct as we are going to get, because this is where Mercury stations retrograde. And now let's see what it does when it stations retrograde. Well, it's going to trine Lilith in Virgo, and there are 4 Lilith types. Okay, there's Black Moon Lilith, there is White Moon Lilith, which I only this year heard about. There is Lilith the asteroid, and there is True Lilith, which Tom Jacobs worked with, has great teachings on True Lilith. And he always uses this analogy that to ask about, let's say, Black Moon Lilith and not True Lilith is like to ask, how do you say, a blow-up doll what a woman is like. So I don't know if it is correct, but it's something that I remember from his analogies. So 4 types of Lilith. This one is Black Moon Lilith. And so Mercury will go um, yes, will be trining Black Moon Lilith. Why am I having this? No, this is still direct. I'm in the Mercury zone, and the retrogression happens on the 13th. Oh, okay. So sorry. In the spirit of Mercury retrograde, we're just going to correct my mistake and proceed on. Show must go on. So Mercury proceeds to trine Black Moon Lilith, and there is a kite shape here with the Moon and Jupiter, and this Black Moon Lilith in Virgo. So Black Moon Lilith in Virgo is very much about look. If Lilith archetype is the woman who won't be subdued. Okay, so for Lilith, the story of Lilith and Adam was basically she was the first woman, but she wouldn't do this as she wouldn't be subservient to Adam. Okay, so either he casted her away or she went away, and then Adam wants her back. But do you return to someone who has been abusive to you? Okay, and this is the question because there are some couples that managed to overcome this and learned from the experience and went through horrid things and are together. Beyonce and Jay-Z went through what she experienced as betrayal, okay, cheating, betrayal, and they're still married. Okay, only they know what's inside, but some couples went through this. And other cases, going back to this person would mean more violence, more this, more that. It's kind of like you don't go to where you had to pray your way out of. So Lilith says, no. I like if I can't be equal with you, I wasn't equal with you. Now you want me back, and then she's punished for this according to the Bible. Okay, or she becomes like a demon. So Lilith's story is the story of a woman that she is about being equal, but perhaps has never experienced what it's actually like to live with a man in equality, or to live with a partner in equality, if it's like same-sex thingy. Mercury trining this is kind of like seeing through the practicality of perhaps how it can be achieved in the real world. So what is an equal relationship looking like in the real world? And with Lilith Virgo, that can have to do with caring or self-care, equality in the face of the medical treatment, accessibility to certain chemistries or chemicals, whether it's herbs or conventional medicine. Lilith is very likely to see herbs and processed herbs, okay, alike. It's like this is medicine, this is medicine. I much prefer it from the plant or to eat it. And in Virgo, we can talk about the equality of women in terms of cleanliness, of care or medical care, and the equality of the medical care that is done by herbs, that is done to that which is done by chemistry, and the pros and cons of each. So the Virgo archetype will tell you that, hey, the fact that you're using, let's say, this essential oil and it is natural doesn't mean it cannot have side effects. Whereas she will only also tell you that, hey, the fact that you take this herb and you process it does not mean that what you get is the same herb. We need to see, okay, what is the same, what is not the same, and holistically, perhaps you want to use the herb or you want to add an addition of something so that you will get the wisdom of the herb. And it can have to do with women health, okay, and words, okay, the role of words. I had an aromatherapy teacher that was Virgo stellium, and one of her teachings had to do with words, okay, how we use words and the use of words to heal ourselves. And she put words next to plants. It's like, I want to grow this word, and put it next to a plant. And that was how, if you went to our house, which we did, this is what you'll see there. These plants were very well taken care, everything very clean. and there are words around the plants, and she would use this to heal herself and to heal people and create transformation and change and growth in life. Okay, so you can think about this archetype versus Mercury, Saturn that rules agriculture. You should think about the plants that are small plants, okay, small plants that you grow because, or plants that you grow for herbal reasons, and how this perhaps, or the regulation of which plants you can grow, which plants you cannot grow. And so Mercury is also law here. So maybe you think about growing cannabis for personal use, and what would be the legislation around this, what would be the bureaucracy, or also what does this plant need, okay, when you want to grow it versus when you purchase it, and how do you actually reach the good results, what you need to clean, and so on. And that might be used as a supportive medicine for women, and also as a way of women to gain their autonomy in the face of psychiatry. Okay, Saturn is in Pisces, of psychiatry, of conventional medicine, okay, gynecology, okay, and it's not just the prohibition on abortion. It can also be the support of life, not just the support of abortion, and anything to do with women health, okay, where they want to gain the autonomy over their body, and they use herbs that they grow, and there's some regulation around this or some laws that need to be changed, and that can be discussed. And this is very much supportive, a woman being equal, okay, a woman being equal. This is the conversation, because Lilith is still separating from an opposition to Saturn. And so in Saturn's view, this is medicine, this is science, this is what heals, or this is what the guru said, master this, master that. And Lilith is like, I don't care what your master says, what your guru says, what your doctor says. This is me, this is my body, and I am not a person who is not attuned to it. Like, I can read a chemistry book, I can read a herbalist book, I can do the experimentation with my body, because anyway, when I come to you and I ask you to the detail, what are you doing? You're basically doing trial and error with me. So if you are doing medical experiments with me, I can do medical experiments with me. We can talk and we can share information, but this is my body. Okay. And it's going to pertain especially to those medicines that are considered women, or if there is gender affirming stuff, so perhaps there can be natural way to work with the hormones rather than chemistry way, but it can also pertain to the chemistry. It's kind of like, I need to be informed of what you're giving me, I need to be informed of how I do that, and also I have the right to do that, be it gender affirming processes or whatnot. It's kind of like, you don't have the power over my health. That is the transit, the spirit of the transit. December 11, Mercury will sextile Venus. And again, this is a Venus that is in Scorpio, 8 degrees Scorpio. So she's separating from the opposition to Jupiter. And Mercury is having a mitigating role here because she is in the realm of Mars, with Mars in Sag, 12 degrees Sag. So Mars wants to liberate, and Venus, being the domain of Mars, wants to be liberated or to liberate herself from something. And this something can have to do with sexuality, with psychology, and that is not so much in tandem with what this Jupiter Taurus tries to do. So maybe Jupiter Taurus tries to go over, I don't know, how sacred is the female orgasm, okay? And Venus in Scorpio is kind of like, I can't have an orgasm. I don't know how to do this now after what I've been through, and there are blocks, and every time I try, something comes up, some flashbacks, some this, some that. Mercury, Capricorn, with Saturn in Jupiter's sign, is going to be a mitigating force. Okay, maybe we'll try this. Maybe you'll try, I don't know, orgasming through your feet. Maybe we'll try to slow down and see what comes up. And this is in alignment with what Venus in Scorpio is doing, because she's transforming the psychosexual experience or experiences that she's had into kind of engineering a more pleasant. And it's finding it sounds very weird to say engineering a more pleasant, but it's genuinely what she's doing there. She is purging something to create an experience that she is whole with. And this can pertain to how does health, how does wealth come into this, to my safety to have an orgasm with someone, but also with all the health and the wealth in the world. There is the trust, which is Scorpio. Trust is a very big deal. So in this situation, Mercury is being very practical. Maybe we try this, maybe we try that. Maybe we try going to, with your feet, or going to some erogenous zone and being very slow with this. And so there can also be, perhaps when we tend to those financial worries that we have, then we can be more orgasmic. Okay, perhaps when we communicate about the things that are happening, then we can be more romantic. Okay, so Mercury it's like, let's do this. Where is our connection going, or how is the wealth in our connection being allocated, or what are the things that are of bureaucracy, of taxation, that are impending on us, taking the clothes off and enjoying life. So this is a very blessed transit that we have here, because it helps us to take that which needs to be tended to out of the way, not by swiping it under the rug, but by, for a change, actually sorting it out, or at least looking at it, and so that we can allow for purgative experience, which Venus is in Scorpio, to occur. On a more mundane level, if we have been talking about like Ukraine or Belgium, then the Scorpio side would be the other side. Okay, Scorpio side can also be related with the Kurds or women, Kurdi women, perhaps even Yazidi women that might play a role in the politics today. Maybe they are purging something. Maybe they are tending to some things, and perhaps for once they are being heard. Okay, I don't believe it will be ascribing to the women, let's say, of Israel that much that we have now with Mercury, with Venus Libra towards the end, kind of like a month too late. The organizations, like global organizations of women, have expressed their condemnation of what was done to women in 7th of October. But I don't think that it's going to be like, I think it's going to be ending there. But this can be more perhaps Kurdi women or other women that have been going through like these issues. But also, yes, this very likely is the case in this situation. As to the Ukraine-Russia, again, just something going there, but I'm not sure, because Venus does rule Taurus, but she also rules Libra. I'm not sure what it is that's being done, or perhaps the women that were victims in Ukraine or in Israel. And my eyes are also to Belgium. I don't know the what, when, and who of that. And I don't know what is going with Mr. Hilders. Is he becoming prime minister, not becoming prime minister? But if he does, he thinks to annex part of Belgium, where it's very much reminding of the Crimea story, that many people wanted to be under Putin's regime and call themselves Russians. but there were also other, okay, people that saw themselves as Ukrainian, and that became a very difficult saga that unfortunately Mr. Willers is thinking to begin. And that is something I'm also looking at, is what will happen in Belgium. Perhaps Germany, or women in Germany is another point of view here. But all in all, something in the terms of legislation, of taxation, of long-term investment, or the look upon medicine is being done to kind of help, or maybe the women in Pfizer that were hurt, or the menstrual system, or the bleeding that was hurt. Even with the Pfizer thing is coming up, and then Mercury is kind of like the class lawsuits. There's just something coming up there with the medicine and women still, and women rights, that Mercury is assisting to mitigate. Because Jupiter here can be kind of like traditional view, because Taurus is traditional, and it's women, and it's land, and Jupiter is religious, so it's kind of like, oh, the religious view of women, and women is the, let's say women is the respect of the family, and the Venus in Scorpio is kind of like, the fuck no, I'm not the family, I'm me, and I deserve respect even if I slept with 20 men. Okay, that can be pretty much what we are talking about, and you can see the opposition. Mercury is here to assist in bridging these differences, and mitigate opposition. Okay, it's not a harsh opposition usually, but it's something to remember that Venus, the ruler of Jupiter, is in detriment in Scorpio. So she's not happy with what's happening in her own home sign. Was noch? So the next one will already be when Mercury is retrograde. So Mercury goes retrograde on the 13th, and then it goes over a lot of the same. So what it goes over is, first of all, in its retrograde, in 8-degree retrograde, it's going over that, what is exact here? Because I don't see it's going over, it's going over the trine with Lilith again, but now in retrograde motion. So one example around this can be, okay, that in the direct, we went through legalizing cannabis for personal growth, okay? Now we go backwards and we see that there was no, let's say, supervision on which types of plant can actually be beneficial. And so people began to grow plants, and they're like, and Mercury rethinks that, and it's like, oh, we should have been more specific in our legislation, because these women are giving sham plants that won't fertilize, or you need 2 plants to fertilize, and then I don't know how it goes. And then what happens is basically they're not being given the conditions to actually grow. It's kind of like those trickery things, and they can go bitter. It's like, hey, you fooled us, and now is basically going over and saying, oh, there's that detail missing, so that would be usable. It's very much what we can find in these situations. Can have to do with chemistry, with plants, herbalism, and to do with trade and trade laws. You know, for example, if I think we had in Israel the issues of the tomatoes. Okay, there were the tomatoes that were imported from Turkey and put in, by the supermarkets, they were put in the same things that, like the cartons that had the name of Israel. So it's like made in Israel, but they put the things from Turkey in it. And it's no reason. I bought Israeli made tomatoes. They're very good and very tasty. It's like, and they were also not all that much more expensive, maybe 1 shekel, maybe 2 shekels. So if you can afford to buy some, then you probably could be. And if you cannot, then you still need, you would still need to be subsidized if you would import from Turkey. So that can be something like that that's being done in the direct motion, and then on the retrograde motion people talk and then like, okay, we'll have to change it, we'll put the Israeli ones in the Israeli thingy, and that can very much be something quite similar that happens. But this one actually, because on a mundane level this does happen on the Virgo Pisces, so it can be something like this. But in terms of, let's say you want to buy something that is supporting of Palestine or Palestinian produced, which I don't think is even possible right now. And so, or maybe you would be marketed something that's Palestinian produced, and you think you're buying Palestinian produced, and then you're like buying from, let's say, Israel. And then people are like, oh shit, that was, we were conned, we were this, we were that. And then people are like, the fuck did you think somebody can produce something in Gaza right now? So it can be one of these issues that we're going back and we have to rethink how we do that which we want to achieve. Now Mercury trines Jupiter. On the 18th of December, this very same Mercury retrograde 5 degrees is going to trine Jupiter on the degree where it will station direct. And this is no longer the mitigation. Okay, so what's different between this one and the direct motion is in the direct motion, Mercury was sextile in Venus and trine in Jupiter. And so Mercury was basically, doing exactly what it came here to do, which is being the mediator. It's like, hey, I hear you and I hear you. Now let's do a trick so that both of you will find this is a good deal. Mercury retrograde is now just going over the trine with Jupiter. So it's not directly tending to Venus, which is in 16 degrees Scorpio and very much in orb to oppose Uranus. Okay. I remind you, the Venus-Uranus, which need an episode of their own, whenever Venus-Uranus is in hard aspect, prepare your wallets. You're not going to be sleeping well. You might be falling in and out of love. And you might want to overcompensate with emotional purchasing, emotional eating, buying some new gadget, or just, whichever house it falls for you. But when Venus does something with Uranus, hard aspect, prepare your wallets. For Mercury, it moves very fast, so unless it's like in Taurus, which was the retrograde in Taurus was like, but normally Mercury is not that much of a big deal. And Venus takes a little, it can be like a weekend that you're being affected by it. So 18 December, prepare your wallets, okay? Prepare to overspend. So if you have already overspent, I don't know what to do, but prepare to overspend. And so this Venus still rules over Jupiter, and she's about to oppose Uranus. So what we get here is a kind of a psycho-spiritual, can also be sexual eureka that has to do with some detail Mercury is tending to. And this detail with Saturn in Pisces can be about some creative project. It's like that, having this eureka. Oh, I want to do a portrait of Henry Kissinger as an OnlyFans account. And write Realpolitik. Or write a short story about Henry Kissinger, the deceased Henry Kissinger, trying to open an OnlyFans page and kind of being bombarded by the same Realpolitik that he tended to, and says, and kind of like writes something like this, or satirical or something like that. It can very much be something of that sort, and Mercury retrograde with the moon growing here can allow you to execute, to launch. It's kind of like to launch a satirical attack, but it's also kind of funny, and you find a way about the legislation. If you want to say something about medication, about drugs, about this, about that, and you want to go and kind of like what the fact checkers are, are not looking at, or they're not going to be able to do anything, then it might be something like this. But again, you are still addressing what Mercury addressed when Mercury was 5 degrees in Capricorn. Now it just has an addition of Jupiter and the Eureka of Venus. So there's a twist in the plot, but this is not the end of the story. This is just another chapter because Mercury would go again direct, yes, probably on January, over this point, and it's going to be 2024. And now you will have to either deal with the repercussion, or you're just gonna have to redo something. So whatever you're creating or writing now, this is not the final touch. Even though it is good time to release stuff, but you have to make sure that you can prepare your wallet if needed be for the implications. Yes, or prepare your whatever. So this is December 18. Now we have December 21. Mercury will sextile Saturn. And this is where it is today. Today it is sextile in Saturn, only that it will sextile Saturn from a degree forward. Okay, well, Saturn is very close to a fixed star called Fomalhaut. And Fomalhaut, you need to meditate on it because it's like the hidden knowledge of the depth of the ocean, which you cannot really express in words. So it can be a hidden intuition, but depending on which planet it kind of governs, it can also give stuff like slander, or the protection of slander, or repercussions, or something like this. And Saturn is more like repercussions, what have accumulated in terms of karma or stuff like that. So Mercury is going to sextile this Saturn again, while separating from the trine to Jupiter, and the moon is going to go over this during the day. That is that can be pleasant. Can be pleasant because it is one touch where Mercury understands that it is redoing something, but the ruler Saturn is supportive of what it's doing. So let's say you wrote this Saturn about Kissinger, and then you have a Kissinger child. So no, you must take it away, and and this and that and that and that and that. But Saturn is supporting you, and you can get kind of like a hidden trick on how to deal with that, how to undo what damages you've done. And I'm going to stop this and return in a couple of minutes. Okay, so we are back, and now this Mercury Saturn sextile, which we said is pleasant because let's say you have to edit a satire that you did, or you have to kind of protect yourself, then you get the wisdom. You like Saturn gets you. Saturn gets you, and Saturn can be, even though it finds it very difficult to fend for itself, right now it can actually, with this particular sextile, Saturn can be actually helpful. So this can be, there are the cases where people were taken to a mental hospital because of something that they said or something they wrote on social media. Then you can encounter that psychiatrist who tells you, yes, I know those things. They do them all the time. I will write that you are a bit crazy and you will stay here a week or so, and then we will let you go, and salamat. Or he writes that, I cannot hospitalize this person. Yes, they were like this, they were like that. They promised that they will not repeat this psychotic content, and then salamat. Yes, but you have to also think this is still a Mercury retrograde. You might need to write. So I do not advise you to give up the right to speech, because you will speak. And I'm saying this from a very personal experience, okay? Sugar-free lemonade. Yes, and this conversation was very much like a conversation that I have had. So I'm saying this because you would need to rethink. Saturn wants to help you. It will be able to help you for as much as the retrograde goes, but then you will go through the direct motion, and if it is about silencing you or something like that, then you would know that this will have to be exploded. Just be ready for that, because you cannot give your right to speech from a holistic medical point of view, if this is what this is about. Yes, if you're laminating, then you will be laminating. Okay, if you're doing this satire, then you will be doing this, and it's probably fated for you to do so with the co-presence of it's like if you wrote something like this, is probably you're gonna touch on that again. Especially when Saturn is in Pisces. So we have, this one is the last one. The next one is going to be already from Sagittarius. It's 27 December. Mercury is going to go over Sagittarius, square Neptune. So it's going to go all that way, then conjunct Mars. Okay, maybe we'll go a little bit over this, so you'll know kind of like the whole story. At 24 degrees, it will conjunct Mars, still square Neptune. That is Sagittarius land, and that can be a bit of a fated loss of whether, if it is something to do with litigation, then either it is absolved. Okay, if you are litigating and relying on that to work in a certain way, you will have to give up, if it is hopefully not creative rights. But there is there is a reason why this, if it's a court case, why it doesn't go the way that it should go. Okay, because Neptune is involved. And Neptune, sometimes your loss is your gain, but it's something you will see many, many decades later. Then we have already in January, Mercury will re-enter Capricorn on January 14. Okay, so we're having January 9th, we will have the direct motion of Mercury, 25 degrees, square in Neptune. Or the moon will later go over this, but it's no longer, Mars is no longer there. Mars is in Capricorn, and it goes direct on January 2nd, just a month from today. Mercury goes direct on the 22nd degree of Sagittarius. This is where we are addressing deceased, killed, assassined media people. And what I saw in the last one, this was assassin media people that were assassinated because of their belief. Okay. and their worldview. So it's kind of like the activist journalism, where you have to take into account that when you're doing activist journalism, you are doing military action. And so, it's kind of like people say, journalism is the watchdog of democracy. Journalism existed before democracy and also exists outside of the context of democracy. When we talk about the international arena, then it's a basically militant position to be in, where a journalist has their own worldview and their own beliefs, but it can also be journalists that are the spokespeople of certain religious or philosophical, ideological, with the co-presence of Jupiter here. And there can be a discussion about assassination and unfortunately be also of children. Kind of like young gurus. So it can be people that are also of lawyers as well, because Mercury is the lawyers and traders. So there can be business people killed, journalists, or the discussion about this. But 22nd degree, mundanely, probably we're going to say goodbye to some people. But on the personal level, it's probably you're going to hear about this on the news, or you're going to learn about this, or you're going to have a teaching into assassination of journalism from various more intricate points of view. And yes, and that is, but this is the point where Mercury stations direct. So this means that we have something to revisit there, and there's a pivotal point about this journalism thing. So our worldview around journalism, or journalism at war, or journalist coverage, or freedom of speech, if you think about, maybe we might find out what happened to the journalists to try to cover the homeless concentration camps and death camps, forced labor that's happening in the United States. Okay, so we know that some journalists were arrested. Unfortunately, some of them may have been assassinated. And so we may find out something like this. And Mercury direct, retrograde can also be things missing. So missing the news, or something that will be on the news, because this is happening in Sagittarius, and it's the first house of the United States. Then I predict there to be some sort of discussion, okay, about this. There's kind of like, we can no longer talk just about the journalists in Gaza. There are also some missing journalists in the United States. What happened to them? Oh, they were murdered by the United States. Where? In prison? Where? Because Jupiter Jupiter is in Taurus, so we don't know if that was the case. But this is a thing. This is a thing. So news about assassination, people looking into it, people changing their worldview, and then January 18, Mercury will sextile Saturn on the final time with with already ingressing into Capricorn. Okay, so it's going to be after the ingress, and it's going to go over this sextile with Saturn, this time on the 4th degree. Okay, still around for Malaut. And Saturn is direct and Mercury is direct. So this is where, if Mercury is going to also trine Jupiter, and the Moon will go over it. So this is where, when we see this, we see the direct retrograde and direct motion around the sextile to Saturn. We see that what you think to do here, if you're the Mercury person here, what you think to do here, and there is a concern about fact-checking, about this, about that. If you survive, yes, the 22nd degree of Sagittarius, you will be successful. So this is where, if you're writing a satire, if you're lemonade, again, be cautious. Yes, protect yourself from assassination and so on and so forth. But if you're lemonade, If you're satiring, satire. If you need to speak up, speak up, because Saturn will facilitate. It will help you. And this Saturn can very much be the prescription of the psychiatrist. Okay? That says, I am sorry, this person, not crazy. I deem this person not crazy. But if you're like going to be imprisoned, then can be, yes, this person is going through so and so and so. Yes, it's caused them to this and this. But essentially, you know, it's kind of like Saturn is going to vouch for you here in some way. And Saturn here, granted that it's not like a mad boss or a drug cartel boss that is kind of like, oh, no, I'm going to vouch for you. It can also be the psychiatrist that says, no, this person is not crazy. Or alternatively, this person is balloonies, where he tells you, don't take the pills, no problem, you don't get litigated. Or alternatively, if it's something where your opponents want you to be this crazy person, then Saturn is kind of like the psychiatrist that checks you and says, I'm sorry, this person is absolutely not bonkers. And so what you need to do here with the Mercury thingy, you must make sure that when Mercury is in Sagittarius on the 22nd degree, that you have taken the measures, okay? But when you do survive this, and it is an assassination attempt, can be, when you do survive this, then you will get the help of Saturn. Okay, there is something that's worth the while to speak about, because if you sustain this, and you can, then this means that you have published something, you have leaked some information, you have provoked a thought with your satire, with your art, or you have passed a law or a regulation that is going to affect the long-term situation of something. And again, if you're doing this and you're in favor of humanity, then you know that the planets, in as much as Saturn is concerned, it supports you. But when you ingress into Sagittarius land, then this is more problematic, because you have the position on the 22nd degree. This is where you could be facing assassination or stuff like that, and this is where you want to be concerned and tend to, so that when you come back, you go back to Capricorn realm, you're pretty much safe there. You pretty much can get out of it. It's more the Sagittarius land that we're concerned about. So yeah. January 19, Mercury trines Jupiter. And from the 6th degree of Capricorn, Mercury trines Jupiter, the moon will go over this as this perfects. So we're going to be opening to hearing this out. But the ruler of Jupiter, Venus, is going to be squaring Neptune on the degrees. So she's going to be 25 degrees Sagittarius, and this is a square to Neptune. That can kind of mean you have an agreement between, whether it is, I don't know, if it's the 8th house, like your accountant, or if it is some sort of regulation. So there's agreement between kind of like your philosophy or what you need to do. Let's say you want to, I don't know, export fruits. Okay, so you agree, the financial thing is, the plutocracy agrees, like everybody agrees. But then as these fruits go abroad, they get stolen by some pirates. This is actually one of the signification of this, mostly. Okay, so they get stolen by some pirates. And so this is where something can go through loss, through crisis. Message doesn't necessarily come across, but here with Venus, it's more like lost goods. Okay, so if you are traveling with pets and Venus is kind of like ruling your 6th house in some way, or the ruler of your 6th house, be very cautious, because what you could be losing is your pet. Okay, If it is women or sisters, then there can be some sort of a crisis here that we also need to tend to. Yes, Mercury is still sextile in Saturn, its ruler, and trine in Jupiter. But the ruler Venus here brings us some sort of loss. It can be material loss, and that hopefully is not going to be like something that you can't afford to lose. But there can be some stolen goods, some pirates that steal some fruits, some veggies. And when they're doing this, they're just criminals. Okay, they're just looking criminals in the center, like they just need this. Just either they're stealing this because they are refugees and they need this food, or they're stealing from refugees. Okay, if it's going to refugees, they're stealing from refugees. On a Monday level, there is the involvement of the Pisces Virgo. So Hamas has its ascendant in Pisces, so that can be like Hamas stealing goods, stealing fruits, stealing food from, let's say, UNRWA or something like that. And unfortunately, because the ascendant is closer to Neptune, then this can be Hamas doing this, okay? And not like what happened previously, where the Palestinians were stealing food from UNRWA so it wouldn't get to Hamas, basically. They were stealing their food. Like one of the only times that the food actually got to the people, because the people were stealing the food. So here is can have little consequences just because it is food. But other than that, I don't necessarily see other contexts than that. I don't necessarily see that to be a lethal thing. It's just more like, oh, there is food. Poof, we take it. No, we steal it. The degree here is not particularly lethal. It's just like there's something corrupt, or it can be stolen drugs. Okay, or maybe somebody smuggles drugs and then it is lost because it's actually get caught. So you need to understand. It's like, you know, some Saturn person is making sure that when the ship arrives, it's going to be tended to and addressed, but then the goods, it actually is tended to and addressed, so it will come to the people, but then there are drugs in it, so everything is confiscated and verdammt. That is what I see about this. I don't necessarily think it's like a ship drones or anything like that. It's just more like stealing and stuff, but it can be, okay? January 24, Mercury will trine Lilith again, now when it is direct. And Lilith is direct. This happens in 12 degrees, 12 degrees Capricorn. But this is already crossing the 8th degree, okay? This is where Mercury has passed its shade. Okay, we're past the retrogression shade, okay? But this episode is in the entire Mercury Capricorn, not just the retrogression period. So in 12 degrees, after the retrogression, now Mercury and Lilith meet again, this time on the 12th degree of Virgo and Capricorn. And again, what did we say? Now, Mercury is going to conjunct with Mars. And this conjunction is being opposed by the moon, so it's going to be manifesting some event to do with this. So this can be something about. Mercury is also about stealing, you must understand. So something to do with the chemistry and weapon, army use or food for the army. That Lilith is agreeing with something here, or the army is actually, or there are many women combatants. But I see here the axis, so this can be like Rojava. Okay, they have the ascendant there, and Lilith is the first house. They're approaching the Lilith return, because it's more like the ascendant here is Virgo. So on a mundane level, yes, it's going to be more like PLO, Palestinian people, rather than Hamas are agreeing on something, or they finally manage to get, it can be like ammunition, like they're supplied ammunition in, it's like the ammunition is delivered, but now to PLO, not to Hamas, because the ascendant is Virgo, is opposing Hamas. If this is something like this, but with Lilith here, it can be that it's supplied to women as well, and it can come as, oh, we just give these medications, or we just give these, I don't know, herbs, or something like this, and then there is weapon in there, or that the medication is some weapon, like there's something, a chemical weapon, but this time it's like supplied to women. So I'm not sure what's going on. Yes, Saturn is still in Pisces. But there is agreement of the people. Okay, if this is in particular going to end up as something bad that Hamas does, Palestinian people will have big problem, because this is having agreement of Palestinian women. Yes, but other than that, it can be something to do with Rojava, that they are being provided with some weapon. And there's this Saturn figure that's assisting it, that of course is not Hamas, because they're connected more to ISIS. So there's just something interesting happening there. But it can be under the guise of medicine. Some weapon is provided. Yes. And yeah, the ruler of Mercury and Mars here, and Venus is also co-present. There's something very interesting going on here. It also separates from a trine to Jupiter. And this Saturn is in Pisces, sextile in Jupiter. I don't know what to make of this. Like on a mundane level, I don't know what to make of this. The juxtaposition, or there can be rules and regulations and taxation. It's kind of like, how do you import weapon as medicine or medical warfare? But then it's like the Lilith agrees to this, and Saturn is kind of governing this, and is in agreement with Jupiter. If I think on a mundane level, I think it's like, no, I don't know. If I have a hypothesis, I don't even know if it's possible to speak about now. But it's very interesting. Completely different than the first touch. Okay, the first touch had to do with more like healthcare, but not so much weapon. Here's like an addition of weapon here, or something could be militarily, or pesticide, or what does Saturn do? It is pesticide, or severing ties, or maybe abortion, but I'm not sure. Something very interesting here, but I think it is more like medical warfare through chemistry, chemical warfare, something like chemistry and military, something like this. But then there is this Lilith that is kind of like, yeah, let's use this, and she's kind of like, oh, why? Like, I don't know. Okay, it's something very weird. January 26th, whereas Mercury is still in Capricorn, really conjuncting Mars, 15 degrees. This is squaring Chiron. So this is where both the ruler of Chiron, which is Mars, and Mercury square Chiron. That could be an ouch, because we are dealing with, and what is Chiron right now? Chiron right now is the wound to your ability to assert yourself. Okay, it's kind of like, I want to be independent, and then you're like, but where's the welfare here? You said you wanted to be independent, but I'm hungry. Get yourself some food. But there is no food around. Look at this, I don't know, carob tree. Eat something. You said you wanted to be independent. Okay? And then the Aries archetype is kind of like, fuck, how's this done? I don't know shit from my life, but I definitely don't want to give my power away. And I don't know how the fuck is this done, okay? How is this independence thing doing? How do I do this? And it's just a wound around asserting yourself. With Mars in Capricorn land, it could be around taxation, regulation, or if you like, like the military. So it's like, oh, what is like, yeah, but no, this is what you said is illegal order. What is an illegal order? My God, they didn't teach you. No, we are a new army. This what you're saying is a war crime. Well, they don't litigate those in those countries for war crimes. Yes, but they will litigate for war crimes because they don't want you to exist. So what is a war crime? Okay, now Saturn needs to be educated. Now Mars is needing to be educated with Saturn. And Mercury is squaring Chiron. So Mercury is kind of like, oh, somebody gives you a good advice, a good trick, a good war strategy to go around this, or even war strategy to go around taxation or debt or something like this. And then Chiron hits and boom, you want to apply this and it triggers some inner core wound in you. On a mundane level, it can be some military strategy that hits on that wound again, steps on that wound again. I think it was Philip Filipov that said that Iranian people could be affected by something that happens since the birthing of Mars. I don't remember in what constellation. He had an interview with Lada, and they also have a conference, like a big conference in December. That's only 30 euros if you register now. It's like, I don't get anything from this, but I think that this is very beautiful and very accessible. Okay, 3 whole days of astrological conference. You have all the big names and whatnot from all over the world, and only 30 euros is a Zoom conference. You can go to Lada Duncheva's channel, look for the Philip video. I think it is about omens on 2024, and you will find the link. If you catch it now, later, maybe 40 euros, but it's in the mid-December Zoom, so way more accessible than most conferences out there. Yes, and that is just something that comes up. But what I think he said was that Iranian people might be also affected, and I think in this conjunction, because Chiron is going through Iran's chart as well here, it might touch on something to do with Iranian people. Yes, I'm not sure exactly the what and how, but it can be some sort of a military strategy, or some, maybe they want to remove certain sanctions and they need to return to their own economy, but now they have to deal with certain challenges that either reappear in their lives or just a present now that make it difficult for them to self-sustain. And it can be economically, it can be militarily as well. It can have to do with oils too, okay, because Iran in 1973, before the 1979 revolution, was the only country that provided oils for Israel. This was the year when you could suddenly criticize Israel, because the entire West that helped Israel was under an oil embargo, and Iran provided oil for only Israel. Okay, so, and this is how Israel survived the embargo of oils on the West by the friendship it previously had with Iran before the changing of the regime. By the way, fact checkers might think differently. There was some rumor, very elegant with words here, that was running during the October War, of a leakage right around those days. There was a leakage of oil in the Arava region of oil pipe, and this pipe was probably originating in Iran, maybe even Iraq, through Jordan, through Egypt, through Israel. So you must understand some establishment of some agreements do hold for some peace that we didn't know existed in the Middle East, and everybody's at war with everybody. So we understand that there are various levels. This is the nature of Pluto. Pluto is the pipes and Pluto is the oils. So we understand that there are various realities that we are not shown, where the business runs as usual, the oil business, which necessitates governmental agreements about infrastructure and borders. Okay, the oil spills like water, and everybody kills everybody. It's just really something that we need to hold space in our head. That granted that such rumor has some substance, it can be in alignment with Pluto in Capricorn, and then the Kivish like, oh, is there peace in the Middle East that we're not aware of? And if so, why do we get the fighting that's going on in reality, in praxis, on the land? And now for this conjunction, this friction with Chiron here is going to be a real ouch. And what you must remember about this is just a couple of days, and then it proceeds. But that ouch is going to be touchy. You know, it's going to be your ego, your consciousness. There's just something around your ability to say, I am in the real world, that is wounded. And as Mercury tries to conjoin Mars, which is the ruler of this Chiron, it becomes like a big mess. Okay? So that is an ouchie that we need to remember. Hey, Chiron is involved here. On a military strategy level, I would not elect anything on this day. Okay? But if something is elected on this day, the ouchie is very planned. It's very orchestrated. Yes, darlings? Now let's take a look to January 27, Mercury conjunct Mars. This is the actual conjunction. And the moon is... No, not. We'll go over this, but beforehand, as it perfects. And this happens on the 17th degree of Capricorn, separating from this Chiron, but applying to square the nodes. Okay, it's 2 degrees away from squaring Rahu and Ketu. So, this is where we are moving on from the ouch moment that pertains to our potency in asserting ourselves and saying I am and standing behind it. And now there is some sort of a fated crisis. On a mundane level, this is a fated crisis to do with finances, to do with nations and nationalities, can have to do with the UN, okay, as well. I don't see it happening in a particular location of the ones that we know of, and this is important. It's more like the UN here, okay, because this is the chart that's more involved with the UN chart than, let's say, the ongoing conflicts that we have around. But because Ketu is still not too far from the ascendant of the state of Israel, if you count in the Libra ascendant, 23rd Libra, and not the 0 Scorpio ascendant, then which is very reasonable with what we've seen, then it can have to do with some sort of crisis that the state of Israel, this is very local, okay, the state of Israel deals with when it comes to the bureaucracy of its military strategy, and it can be its military strategy with journalists, but this time, because of the 17 degrees current, it's not like the 22nd degree or the 11th degree. It can be that Israel finds it very difficult to explain what it does militarily to the world and receive the support from the world. Okay, it's kind of like, hey, we've given you that much leverage. We from here don't see why you from there are doing what you are doing at this point. And there is some sort of fated action. And the fated crisis, in my opinion, is going to be around trying to explain this action. Okay, or there was a failed action. Okay, previously there was a failed action with the ouchie moment in Chiron, and now Israel has to try and explain this, but it needs to explain this. I think also in terms of its budgeting, because this is yes, Capricorn to its people. Okay, it's like Israeli people would require an explanation here, or the government does something to the people as well, to the Israeli people, and there's an ouchie moment, and something to do with children. You think about people talking about the kidnap of the Yemen children again, or something like this. Or it's kind of like the country tries to swipe something under the rug, or it's just some sort of action that fails, and the people are kind of like spewing, gushing, hey, we like, no, this is no. But on the other hand, it can be that the people are requiring certain extreme action, but the Mercury in the fourth house is kind of like the government has to explain itself to its people, or something of that sort. It's just something happening with the people. Is that yes, and it can come from an opponent or partner of the government. But on a mundane level, I think it's more related to the UN, and UN finding it difficult to sustain its legitimacy. Because Mars is ruling Rahu. Okay, and just kind of like, oh, where are we going here? Where was the UN in? And UN finds it difficult to sustain the legitimacy of its actions. If we get something like a Security Council, which I do not predict for there to be, okay, but it can even be the questioning of the Security Council, okay, the P5, because only the Security Council can invade militarily a territory. But yes, that's kind of like on a mundane level. On a personal level, there's some fated action that you try to take to proceed here, maybe contract, maybe tending to your taxes, maybe paying off debt or taking a loan. And there's some fated crisis that you have in your Aries and Libra house. Now we go to January 28th, in which Mercury trines Uranus. And you have another kite shape in the sky here with the Moon and Lilith. So Mercury separates only 1 degree from the conjunction with Mars. It's still dancing with Mars. Okay, and this is already, first of all, the exact square to the nodes, which should be noted. Okay, it's the exact square to the node. So the crisis continues, but there is help coming from Uranus that is direct now in 19 degrees Taurus. So the resolution to this crisis can be an act of revolt, can be a eureka, can be an instigation of a social credit score system or something of that sort. okay? And or alternatively, Uranus is not the resolution, but is actually the initiation of something that is to digitize the economic system in a certain way, and that creates the crisis. Okay? And the crisis is ongoing from Ketu in Libra to the trajectory of autonomy, which is what Rahu in Aries wants, but there is a wound to that autonomy that unfortunately allows for a lot of the legislation around social credit score to occur. Okay, if people can sustain themselves by themselves, they are dependent on something that will assist them. And if that something is not the people, okay, or that the people that are supposed to help are kind of like, well, I don't see that you're doing something with your life. I don't see that this is going anywhere. It looks like you can't really get a hold of yourself financially or in terms of your vision and your project or what you're doing in this world. It seems like you need a lot until it will happen. And I do not support you financially right now. Okay, I cannot give of my time, my hard-earned money, my this, my that, and your hard-earned money is doing something completely balloonies that will later affect your household. But at this point, it is both true that Aries is right now not operating in a way that is self-sustainable. I was talking about Qatar, okay? And Qatar it's a relatively new country, and it goes from relying on oils to trying to venture into high tech, into weapon selling, which it does for a while now. And it kind of tries to say, okay, we are a country. We don't want to be in a situation that if we lost our oils, we would not have an economy. And we definitely don't want to be genocided. So what is there for a country to do? What can it produce that will give it wealth? So that there is weapon, then there is high tech, then there is medicine. And there we see that Qatar finds itself kind of invested in all the atrocities concerning the problematic use of weapon, the problematic corruption in the medical field, and all those things where it's kind of like, hey, we need to sustain ourselves as a country, but how do we do that? Okay, there is a wound around how to do that in a way that will preserve the country's autonomy. This is very important. This is very important, okay, strategically, because all the things that used to work, and now there's a wound in them. You can't sustain yourself the way you always used to do. New countries. And there is a history. There is a history of scientific revolutions. There is a history for innovators. There is a history for entrepreneurship. There are some things that operate under these circumstances. And when we have a Chiron, it means that we need the necessity is there, but there is still a challenge that's beyond the Aries usual challenge. Okay, with Aries usually, if I think about the times where I walked out of a situationship before Chiron was in Aries, then usually I walked, I said no, and then I got something better. Or let's say there was a necessity there, yes, and then I got something way better. At first, maybe it was a crisis for me, and I guess got something way better. When Chiron was in Aries, it's not that this thing did not operate, but there was also a wound where I was like, oh, I don't have a teaching. Okay, where suddenly I was in between homes. I was walking a whole night in the street trying to keep myself safe in the winter. Okay, it was like, oh shit, that place where I say no to something that's not good to me and I step forward and the opportunities open up to me. It's like your courage is and bravery is supported. that thing was like, the fuck is going on? Okay, and of course I was still supported, but also I can see how a person could die doing what I did. This one is as long as Chiron is in Aries, we still have this luring, and that is what makes this conjunction that triggers the nodes, okay, and the Uranus with the co-presence of Chiron in Aries. We're just dealing with it, and later Chiron will go to Taurus, okay, to Venus land. So when we want to be feminine, when we want to be attaining of material wealth, or when we want to relax into kind of like the motherland, and so there's a wound to face there as well. So proceeding on, January 29, Mercury still, yes, Mercury is still in Capricorn and still on the same degree. So this was January 29. It's the 28 and the 29. That's the exact square to the nodes that we talked about. And it goes on to February. So Mercury is still in Capricorn also in February. Okay, we are in December. Look how long Mercury is going to spend going back and forth. And so this is just the beginning of February, because Mercury will enter Aquarius in February 5 and already in February 23 enter Pisces. But right now, let's just keep up with the last Mercury in Capricorn, and we have the Mercury sextile Neptune. So prepare your pens. This is where your poetry is going to be practical, elusive, and effective and healing. Okay, that's a great time to write a poem. And the moon is decreasing, so you could be purging something from your life. Yes, and this is what it's doing pretty much. Yeah, it's just sextiling this Neptune, and this is where some sound practical trickery and some poetic words, or even some tinctures or herbs or something, or consciousness altering substances or energies that are channeling or some sort can conjoin into a beautiful creation. Okay, so you can, and because Mercury is in Capricorn and Saturn is still in Pisces, then you can, it can be a dreamlike situation, or you can shadow something beautiful, or you can communicate something beautiful, and you can create it. My advice to you, if you can put this into art, okay, February 2nd, 2024, if you can book yourself a session of creative endeavor in advance, this is an election for you, and you find a good time during the day. Okay, you go to this astro-seek and you find a good hour during the day. Can be Mercury hour, can be a Jupiter hour, okay, and it can be even a Venus hour, because Venus is in ruling Jupiter, and Venus is in Capricorn. So find yourself a good time during the day or during the night. You can get a bit intoxicated and doing your kind of creative thing. This is not where I would book a talk like with my partner to talk about, practical things. Although Mercury Capricorn is very much about the discussion of practicalities, when it makes this sextile with Neptune, this is where we want to sing together. This is where somebody tells you something and you answer with a poem or a song. And so if it is in the right setting, you can be very serious about your creative project. So you can really create something beautiful with this. Would it be like astrological magic beautiful? I don't know, like you could do something creative, but the moon is in detriment, so you must remember that. Although the moon is bringing Jupiter here, which can be another election that you can have. But then Jupiter, yeah, what is it? Squaring the sun, I don't know. So for a magical election, I don't know. Maybe you want to pinpoint, like to do the trine thing, the sextile thingy, and to capture this as a moment in time. Okay, it can be possible, yes. But you need to remember that Venus, the ruler of Jupiter, he is in Capricorn. The moon is in Scorpio. So I'm not sure what would you do, like why would you do that? But otherwise, book a session with yourself that you can have a ritual, a creative ritual for you. And the moon, remember, is decreasing. So it could be a purgatory, okay, some sort of a purgatory, and it can be something that stands the test of time here. Okay, it can be some sort of a poem or a painting. I know I have this painting in my bedroom that I often look at, and it's just abstract, and I often look at it and it kind of balances my emotions, just because. So you can create something like this, that when you feel in a certain way, you can look at this again, or you can listen to this again, and that can be alleviating of some sort. Just remember the moon is in Scorpio land, and that it colors the colors differently. So you might not want to pop this, like, go to a party or something. A very good election to create. And February 5, which is the last we have of this Mercury Capricorn, we are going to have the actual ingress of Mercury to Aquarius and conjunction with Pluto. So Mercury ends this cycle in Capricorn by conjuncting Pluto. And we get to the smaller cycle of the Mercury-Pluto cycle, okay? Closing one and beginning another, which is in itself worth another episode. But this episode is probably related to the assassinations of journalism from various points of views, the relation between journalism and media and power, children in the hands of the plutocracy or in the hands of the medical elite, sozusagen, or elite as well, and all those things, okay, the kidnapping of children or trafficking of children or scandals around children, but also around the media, and can have to do with lawyers as well, which you just don't hear about this so much because of the ethics involved with exposing this, but for sure there are lawyers that couldn't tackle some cases or were eliminated from the discourse, or hidden, and the very missing reports from the United States in particular, okay, around what's going on with the homeless in the United States and what's on with the journalists who tried to broadcast this. And all laws were broken, okay? All the basics of the Constitution was broken. I know that on Twitter, some people asked certain American astrologers, say, hey, why don't you talk about this? And this is how I found out about this, actually. But you have to understand, just like I'm situated in Israel, there are certain things that I cannot even think about addressing, okay? And it doesn't matter what my opinion, because even if somebody thinks that I said something that I didn't mean to say, even that, okay? And so we have to understand that this is where we can and should support each other. And so I can talk about something in the United States, other people can talk about something in other countries, and so on and so forth, and that's the way it goes, okay? You can't expect a person living in the United States as an astrologer to be broadcasting something that could very well eliminate them from the face of the earth, and that is highly likely why you didn't hear about this from American astrologers. Are some people are like with this and think that the homeless should be eliminated? Well, maybe one or two, but mostly we are dealing with people that they probably have been exposed to this, or probably saw this, or some predicted something like this, but are absolutely not able to say something about this. Just to know that there are American people that are not at all journalists that cannot speak about their country is something that we need to understand, okay? And it's true to any country. So, with this final note, so just to remember, Mercury will conjunct Pluto, will apply to conjunct Pluto as it ends its journey with Capricorn. So this is a very, it's in the note of culmination, okay? And so if I would have to kind of like rename this episode, I would think of the trials and tribulation of practical communication, mundanely, basically mundanely, and also personally, but here is more like where the state gets in your, in Hebrew we say chasenu le'an, connection, where it's basically mean when you have, let's say you're dating someone, we want to know, is this serious? Are we going to do something more? Are we going to commit? Are we going to this? This is where the state gets in your business and affects the direction of your even intimate relations in this way. Now that we've done with this, let's talk about the passage of Mercury through the in Capricorn and the 12 ascendants. Okay, so partially I mentioned this on the December astrology, which I did more than half of the zodiac. And this was my kind of first attempt to do one of these, horoscopes for the 12 ascendants. But now I want to touch on just this particular one and go over the 12 ascendants. So let's say you're ascendant Cancer, where the ascendant is right now. So for you, Mercury is going to travel through your 7th house, have a visit in your 6th house, and go back to your 7th house. This is where what you need to think is, how is my physical health and my partnership, marriage or business, connected? One of these things can be, is the communication with my partner supportive of my physical health? Okay? This is important, because when I come to speak with my partner, do I leave drained? Do I leave like I have no air? Ooh, it's toxic, I cannot take a deep breath. Or do I leave actually fulfilled? And is it something I need to do to change in the way that I communicate, or the way that we communicate together, so that when it comes to my health, I'll get my needs met, okay? I'll be healthy. Okay, the ruler of your 6th house is now in your 11th. So there can be communication. You could be, for example, doing a vlog about health or your health, and then your partner is kind of like, hey, you talk about your health, but you spoke about things we did together, and that is something I would actually like to keep private. Or because it is Venus land, so it can be, if you're a man, this could be your partner, kind of mentioning your health in, their vlog or their social media or their talks, and kind of thinking about this casually, and you're like, whoa, what did you just wait? No, we need to talk about this. And you're going to be re-meeting your expectations, particularly about what you expose, what you or your partner expose on a more public sphere. When you give out conferences, or when you give out talks, or if you have like a blog, it's like, what can we and what can we not communicate? Or alternatively, when we communicate, do I come out more healthy when we speak, or do I feel sick after we have a conversation? Okay, On a more business level, it can be quite similar thing. And you could be communicating about employees as well. So that can be the case. If you have a pet together with your partner, then you might be thinking about it might be thinking about should we do the registry for the pet? Should we have like this the chip that they have inside the pet, or do we want to do this? Do we don't want to do this? It can be something as mundane. But when we talk about the passage of Mercury through your seventh house, it's those practical communications that you have, and they are going to have to do with either a vacation that you want to take, traveling abroad, a degree that you're learning or wanting to take on. The registry, does it mean you need to travel to some other land? Maybe you need to travel together, not together. Those things, and that's going to be while it's going to be heavy conversations. What you have for you is that the ruler of your seventh is right now in your ninth, so you're going to have a shared worldview, okay? Or your partner is going to be teaching you something that you might be quite eager to learn, especially as long as Jupiter and Saturn sextile here, okay? And it's going to be very constructive to whatever dreams and goals you are chasing. So keep that in mind, that even if at times it doesn't seem like that, your partner at this time is very constructive and supportive of your dreams and goals, and is supportive of your spiritual path. Although this is Saturn, and they're bringing a reality check to your worldview. But this reality check can be done with compassion, and can be done in a way that is actually, they are supportive of your dreams and goals, even if they criticize you right now, which you can be annoyed about having Saturn related to your seven. It's like, oh, this partner, this intimate partner brings, or business partner brings so much critique, so much this, so much that. But you need to look at the bigger picture here. They are doing this to really support your dreams and goals, and they're successful in doing so. The sextile between this retrograde Jupiter, which is scheduling you to rethink your worldview, and Saturn is coming from your partner. Your partner now has teachings for you that are supportive of your dreams and goals. Okay, so listening, and even though it may be words that are difficult to hear because Saturn can be a bit cold, or it can be more like not so emotional. It's like speaking to your rationality, but they are dealing with things that can be very intimate, or very what does Jupiter rule? Your feet, and how your feet, and sensual pleasure, and your sperm count, and your all these things. And they could be like coldly saying something, but they don't say it without compassion, and they don't say it to bring you down. Okay, they say it to support your dreams and goals. So when you have this in mind, meditate on this and remember this, because your partner now can be putting you through a reality check of your worldview that's actually needed and actually supportive for as long as this Jupiter-Saturn sextile. Okay, it's just a transit. It doesn't mean that they're always right, but right now you want to listen. Ascendant Leo. Ascendant Leo, Mercury is going through your sixth house of health, with Saturn being in your eighth house. So there can be this issue where you finally find the budget or get into debt to support your health routine, or you have a communication about your health, or the health of your pet, or maybe you are taking a pet and then you have to, have insurance for the pet. Your sixth house is pets, or if it is colleagues that you have, colleagues that you have like at work. If you're employed somewhere, then you will be having deep conversations that may point at how do we tackle if there is enmities, if there is ego wars, if there's arguments. But all in all, the ruler Saturn supports you, and it is here in your favor. So you shouldn't be too concerned about this. When Mercury delves into your fifth house, then you really need to reconsider what do you do for fun, or your relationship with your children, or something to do with your children. But it can be more like for a creative project, or what do you do for fun, and that needs to also be discussed in some way, or there needs to be contracts around your having your leisure time as well, in a certain way. Or is your leisure time supportive of your health? Okay, kind of these connections. Or do I have budget to do both what I came here to do, my work, my duty, my service to the world, and to do something that is for me, for my joy, or for my children. And for both of these, I might need a loan, or I might need to get in debt, or it can be something like I want to feed myself better, but I also have to remember to feed my child. And I want to feed myself and my pet better. I also have a child that I want to feed. So it's like all of these people, I need to reconsider all of them when I ask for a loan, let's say, to budget this new healthcare routine, as well as reconsider the type of healthcare that I want. Ascendant Virgo. So for you, Ascendant Virgo, Capricorn is your fifth house, with Pisces in your seventh, and Sag in your fourth. So this Mercury retrograde in your fifth house and fourth house, children and home. Okay, with Saturn in your seventh. So this is where, like I said in the previous one, your child can become like equal, like a partner to you, or maybe wanting to have a business with your child, and that can affect your home. So there's a lot to be discussed here. It can also mean that there are conversations that you have with somebody you're having an affair with, and they become committed, and there are real talks that need to be around, issues of finances. It can also be someone that you meet through discussion about those, supposedly boring things like taxation, like this, like that, and somebody kind of has something that you agree on, and you're like, oh, this is interesting, or this person is interesting, and through that somehow have a connection that is more serious. Mercury is going to make sure that if a connection begins around this time, if you have an affair around this time, that you will really cover the details that you need to cover, and kind of be sure you're on the same path, in as much as those agreements that you have around, whether it may be financial things or dedication of things of Saturn, that they really stand the test of time. Although with your fifth house, you could be the type of person who could be even how do we call this, romantic? This person that can only fall in love if they see something serious with the person. Not reciprocal romantic, but romantic. It's on the A scale. Demisexual. I think demisexual. So you could be demisexual with this, and somebody sparks your interest, like genuinely. So Mercury is here for you to make these conversations, and you could be the type of person that begins to converse about, in this transit with Saturn being in the seventh, you could begin to converse about like a committed relationship right when you meet. Okay, it's like and that can actually be a very good time for you, but you must remember what this Mercury is going to do in your home life. So whether it's your elders or your family, and you're a person to whom family matters a lot and give you a sense of joy even if everything is okay, and so this Mercury, this conversation, or you might have conversation with your house that that perhaps could be a bit more heavy than usual, but eventually, if everything comes through and it's okay, like after this Mercury leaves its shade period, you're very likely in with some quite serious relationship. Okay, that could be actually more than this could be the person. Yes, this again, you need to see your chart. I need to see more indications for it. It's not just one. This is just one indication, but it's a very positive indication. When the ruler of your fifth is in your seventh, okay, and your chart ruler is in the fifth, so you're having affairs. You are meeting someone casually that sees you as more than just someone, and you are seeing your affairs right now in general as something that you only take on when they bring in commitment, and when Mercury enters there, so you also communicate about this. Okay, all in all, it really is looking not bad at all. And Jupiter, although it is retrograde, which means you still have to see when Jupiter goes direct, which is in the end of December. But if that one is okay, like, my God, maybe you want to wait a year or so for like Jupiter to exit Taurus so that you see that it's still stable. But other than that, it's like, if other indications are supportive, you really could be, getting there with the person that you want to be there with, which is not something I usually see as elections in the chart for people. I'm like, wow, this is very interesting. So, if it is a business partnership, then you must be cautious, because while you can be working on a creative project together, there is the question of credit, okay, the creative rights. Is it my project, your project? What is my idea? What can we talk about if we separate? What can you talk about? What can I talk about? And so on and so forth. But also, it can be the type of business and pleasure mixed. I'm not saying this is bad in all cases. There are couples who, sleep with their business partner and they're married, okay? But it is something that you really need to seriously consider, as I would not think that a business venture here would be impersonal or will not include a specific, very serious type of attraction. And if the attraction is really based on substance, which in here it is, then yeah. And look at Jupiter in your ninth house. What does Jupiter rule? Traveling. It is your ninth. Come on. Okay, so I think it is way more than like a business thing or a creative endeavor, joint venture. And the more you understand this, and the more they understand this, then it's going to be easier for you to proceed and see, okay, what is it, those things that we need to cover up to kind of just make sure that that we're on the same path. Libra ascendant. Libra ascendant, Capricorn is in your fourth house with Pisces, fourth house, fifth, sixth house. So Mercury is going through the fourth. This means that you have a conversation with your elders or with your family. Okay, this is the home that I'm living in. Another thing this can predict is that you're having a discussion to do with your the nation or the land that you are living in. But this one pertains to your land of origin. Okay, so you could be traveling to your elders, and there is a political conversation that is going on. And it kind of has a health undertone in it. So it's kind of like a serious conversation with your elders, and it's going to touch on your third house, so your elders, your siblings. If you need to purchase land or purchase a house, I don't know how I feel about the ruler of your fourth house transiting through your sixth, because your sixth is the health house, and Saturn can, whatever you instill now into your life in your fourth house, can have serious long-term implications on your health, okay, or the health of your pet. So if you need to consult like feng shui, do it with someone who understands in astrology, whatever it's Chinese astrology, Vedic astrology, or Ayurvedic astrology, or any type of astrology that takes into account the arrangement of the energies in your house and your natal chart as well, before you make any purchase. And it can be a deal that you're making, and not even you are going to live in the house, but it's going to affect your health for some energy reason. So please make sure you are cautious when it comes to signing contracts, or if you need to move a house, or you may be needing to evacuate because of health or something like this. Double, triple check the facts here. And you're going to have to discuss siblings too. So yeah, but other than that, it just means you speak with your elders, and it can be about the healthcare system in our country, or how am I, is my home supportive of my physical health, or the relations of are my elders to me having pets, whatever, stuff like that. But if it is a business deal, be extra cautious. Ascendant Scorpio. So for Ascendant Scorpio, Capricorn is your third house, okay? Which means Pisces is your fifth house. And so Mercury going through your third house, this is where you have your talks with the neighbors, with your siblings, and it's somehow related to something, or to your children, or to something fun that you do or creative that you are doing. Yes, hopefully you're not like having gambling troubles, and then, but in the more, and it's probably not something of that sort, but you're sort of like, perhaps if you're living in a building, or what you do for fun maybe affects the neighbors, or if you're making noise or singing, or in some way that affect the neighbors, and then the neighbors, they speak about this with you, and you basically adjust the expectation. All in all, nobody is against you, it's very much in your favor, and things go very much in your favor. You should not be too worried about this. Mercury will also go to your second house, so it can be you establish some sort of a creative project, or you do that either in the neighborhood or with a sibling, and there can be even some good effect on your income, okay, as well. Or you might get a grant to do this project or something, but it's more like your skill. So yeah, and this could even be supported by your partner here, because Jupiter is in your seventh house. So all in all, this is a very productive time for you. You just have to set some rules and expectations, and kind of like to meet everyone's needs and make sure that the boundaries are set with everyone. But other than that, it's really good time, good creative time for you, and it's a good time to establish, if you have a business or something, then maybe launches are not, like I haven't checked for this, so you can try to look if there is a good election, if you need to launch something, okay, because you could be doing something very good with this thing. Ascendant Sagittarius. Capricorn is in your second house, okay, which makes a Pisces your fourth house. So for you, there are conversations, contracts, things you need to consider with how your income, your values, and your expenses affect your life path, because Mercury is going to regress to your first house. Yes. And this is where your partner could be affecting things, even in your favor. But you have to be cautious when this Mercury stations on the 22nd degree on your first house. Yes, for your partner has to be cautious, because when this partner is with you, yes, they are at risk of something, if this pertains to them, if it's like their ascendant is Mercury ruled. But other than that, if other significations are not showing, then it's not, it's not a personal thing. Other than that, some good communication and setting in of paperwork. If this is a business that you have, if this is something, a new job or new income that you are making by your skill, then you're going to be doing some stuff. But all in all, it seems like it's going to be good to go and very much supported. Bless me. And you could be working from home with this one, okay, doing remote work, or this could be really supported by your home life or your family, and bring joy into your home. And if your elders were waiting for you to have like a steady income, this might be the time where you actually tend to that, and you actually make some money and make some contracts that will have long-term impact, that I believe eventually is going to be good on your home life, and can be on your life path too, on you. Ascendants, Capricorn. So Mercury is going through your first house. It is ruling your 6th house, and it is ruling your 9th house. This is where, if you haven't traveled abroad, then abroad comes to you. If you haven't taken on the degree you wanted to take, then the degree comes to you. And this, this Mercury in your first house, so it's more to do usually with your life path, what you take on. Your physical appearance is very interesting here, because Saturn is in your 3rd house. So you're going to be showing yourself around the neighborhood, or showing yourself to your siblings, very much with the Saturn, just with the Saturn, okay? Dealing with the neighborhood, or what you have to fix there, or set boundaries there. With the presence of Neptune, there's something you're surrendering about your relationship with relatives, and even the neighborhood that you're living in, okay? There can also be a bit of crime there, so it's just something that happens in the background. But all in all, the Saturn Mercury and the Saturn Jupiter are kind of like very supportive of you, and to feel more at home in your body, or to you could be meeting with your child more, okay? Maybe your child assists you in setting boundaries around your neighborhood, or if there's a leaking in your bathroom, your child could be helping you to fix that. But the conversations here with the Mercury and the 1st house, well, it can simply mean you clean your ears better. Like really, it can mean something like that, or you tend to your hearing, because Mercury is also ruling your 6th house, or you say some things that are important for you to say to your siblings, and actually after you have this conversation, you have improvement upon your health. Okay, you express yourself, you have improvement upon your health. And this can be expressing yourself about something that's going on in the neighborhood, or if you have a leaking in the bathroom and so your child helps you to fix it, then you feel like your hearing is improved, or something like this. Yes, and then there is also Mercury ruling the 9th house. So you might have a conversation about higher studies, religious views, and again, a conversation with your siblings, or with somebody in the neighborhood, or a conversation about traveling, going abroad, and you kind of see that the abroad comes to you. Okay, so it could be having a neighbor that approaches you for something, and this neighbor is coming from a land that you wanted to travel to. Okay, and then you have a conversation. All in all, it is okay. It is relatively supportive. Yes, when it goes into your 12th house is where there can be more troubles there, because it can mean your dreams, okay, or your dream state, and and those dreams can be a bit unpleasant. So that is where Mercury is also in detriment, or there's something about your communication that is undermining you in some sort of way, or you're speaking, no matter of speak conversations undermine your health in some way. But this will soon pass. Ascendant Aquarius. Mercury is going through your 12th house, ruling your 5th and your 8th. So Mercury in your 12th house, you could be having some lucid dreams, or you could be practicing lucid dreams. Hopefully it's not like conversations to do with jail or with like asylum or something like mental health or something like this. But it can also be having some sort of therapeutic effect, because you'd have a dream around, or shamanic journey to do with like ancestral traumas or something of that 8th house sort. Or you could be having some conversations that are of intimate sort with romantic. But this is not romantic partner like 7th house. It's kind of more like affair. Yes, but if you have an affair, your 5th house and your 8th house are ruled by the same ruler. This is timeless teaching for you. You cannot have a casual affair, because if you just want to have a one-night stand, it touches on some ancestral trauma that you have. Okay, so you don't have casual affairs. You're one of these signs that don't have casual affairs. Although with Gemini, you might want to take it light and so on and so forth, but then there is this Virgo 8th house that's being triggered, whatever Mercury is. But you can have like a romance that can be very deep, very transformative, and very kinky and sexy. Okay, so this is again good time for you in the bedroom. And what is Pisces is your 2nd house, so this sexuality can actually bring in some good energy that can even bring you some good material gain. Okay, not from the sex, but sometimes, when you sleep together and you this and you release your traumas, then 8th house is also wealth, then you release your energy blocks and now you're more profitable. So this is all in all good time for you in here. Yes, quite interesting. And also, if there were some things that were not working, you will get to readdress them. Sagittarius is your 11th house. So when Mercury goes through your 11th house again, you need to be cautious of this 22-degree, or your romantic affair needs to be cautious of the 22-degree. But if there are no lethal significations there, it simply means that your hobbies might be mentioned if you do like a podcast or a conference, or something to do with your activism, with some union between what you do for fun or your children and what you do publicly or activistically, or the dreams and goals that you chase. Now let's say this 5th house is not like affair you have, but your child. It can be that your child goes through something that affects you on a mental level, okay, or reminds you of certain traumas that you have, or that you have a dream about your child, or that you're afraid of something around your child. And this is an invitation to resolve and to address something, because eventually it seems like it's not much to be afraid of in this situation. Okay, so if it's something that goes in this realm, then know that it's very likely, unless there are other significations, not something you need to be afraid of, but more something you need to be addressed, be aware of, and purge certain traumas and fears and unconscious fears that you have, maybe around the health of your child or something like this. Ascendant Pisces. So for you, Capricorn is the 11th house, and of course, Pisces is your first. This is where your 11th house comes to your first. For example, if you have not had the money to travel to a conference, okay, then the conference could be coming to you. I remember when I did Spirit of Matter, it began with this. I did not have money to travel to the Northwestern and Norwalk thingy or whatnot. And it was very expensive. But then I had an idea to do a podcast called Spirit of Matter. And at about the time, I was still appointable. And I got to talk with, at first I said, okay, I'm going to target the people that never had a talk or they don't get this much exposure. And I literally went out and searched for the people that have not a lot of exposure and so on and so forth. So I got, but then I also went on Twitter. It's like, let's see, open up to everyone. And if you see the list of people that I spoke with, then some of the people were indeed in the beginning of their practice and did not get much exposure. But some of these, or the first speaker that I had was from India, and he had such wealth of knowledge that is, you know, I'm like, oh my God, this person has taken the time slot for his schedule to talk to me. How did I get to be so fortunate? Okay, so you could be having something like this because this is your life path. And so it can be such a situation where you feel like, oh, I missed this conference and I don't get the time to be in this conference and I really wanted to go there. But maybe I need to be more thrifty. And so this ruler of the 11th house, it comes to you. And this can mean that either you initiate something and you get to have the experience, kind of like the experience, but arriving at your table, or you are meeting people that are as interesting as you would meet in that conference, or you are meeting activists come to you for some reason, and there are a lot of conversations. Mercury for you rules your 4th house, and it rules your 7th house. So if there are other significations, you could be meeting your significant other. If this is a Mercury return for you, you are very susceptible to meet someone, okay? To meet that Virgo who is having a lot going in their committed relationship style. And if you do meet that someone that has placements or is specific, if you meet an ascendant Virgo at this time, it's very likely that is going somewhere. So you really want to be looking at this because a lot of good fortune is coming your way. It's really so. And then there are a lot of conversations. So you might be cracking jokes with your partner, and those jokes may be public. You might be doing a podcast with someone, and this can be public, and it's just giving kind of it's giving jolly, okay? But there are some still things you might need to redo, and Sagittarius is your 10th house. Now, this is where your partner needs to be more cautious than you or your landlord or your elders, because this Mercury is going to station direct on the 22nd degree. Okay, and for you, if you have like ascendant Virgo partner or ascendant Gemini, I don't know, elder or something like this, then you really want to make sure that they're protected. But there have to be other little signification in the chart for that. Other than that, it means that your partner kind of joins you also with something to do with your career, or maybe you're just having a family gathering and your partner is speaking with your parents, or something like that, or your parent kind of become like on a public sphere with you, or you talk about your parent. It's just something of that sort. And that one could be like a bit more tense, but the 11th house, you know, with Mercury going through your 11th, it's a bit of a time of release and culmination for you that I do predict to be quite okay. It is the light part that you have in here, and yes, there is time to go over those things that you will need to redo again, or maybe crack the wrong joke at the wrong time. But then there is this Saturn that is also ruling both your 12th and your 11th. Now, of course, the 12th can be like a hidden enemy that's putting restriction on your life path. But you must look at it from a bird eye view perspective, okay? And here can be your loss, can be your gain here. Okay, so yes, there is this ruler that is also the ruler of the 12th that is coming to your house. Yes, so in the worst case, you can like have the psychiatrist come into your house. It's not to your house so much; it's more like to you. And so with this situationship, again, you must remember that this person is in tandems, but here is either with your elders or your partners, but it's also, there is this sextile you see towards the end of the month, towards February with, but it's an ongoing thing that Saturn and Jupiter and Mercury and Jupiter have a sextile, so you should not be worried. Even if things go a little bit funny, it's all in all is turning out in your favor, okay? So things can go funny, but it is all in all turning out in your favor, and you should not be too concerned or too afraid of what is happening, because eventually you kind of settle with this kind of inner or hidden enemy or whatnot. It's kind of like it's going to be okay. It's not something that's too concerning, but all in all, it's very funny time. Very funny time in your agendas, your public life, and so on. So ascendant Aries. Ascendant Aries, Pisces is your 12th, and Capricorn is your 10th house. So for you, Mercury going through your 10th house is ruling your 3rd house, and it is ruling your 8th house. No, sorry, 6th house. So for you, you might have a public discussion or certain conversations or certain things or agreements with your siblings, your neighbors, and around something to do with your pets or your health, or you as an employee or your employees or some colleagues at work that are in your rank but kind of like having enmity with you. They are going to be made public. Okay, so it's going to be known. It can be like a scandal. But all in all, it's still going to go in your favor because Mercury is sextiling Saturn, and then Saturn is sextiling Jupiter. So if you take a deep breath and you go through February, you will see that all in all, it's in a matter of months, this will turn out in your favor. You should not be too worried about things occurring. Things can go a bit funny, but all in all, not too much of concern. Mercury is going to go over your 9th again. So if you need to make adjustment, whether it is in traveling or it is in your worldview, your religious perspective, or it is conversations with people in academia, if you're in academia, that support your career, your status, or if you're a parent, then that can be related to that as well. If you're getting a promotion, then it's about looking just to make sure, and this is where the Mercury retrograde teaching of like, it's not about don't sign contracts, it is about some things you will need to redo. So if you set it that you're flexible about changing things in this contract, because you both are aware that you will need to look at it over, and you set the time of like after Mercury goes direct, in its shade and then after its shade, before you have kind of like the final draft, then this can absolutely work for you. is absolutely supportive of you. Saturn is supportive of you. Jupiter is supportive of you. Even Venus is supportive of you throughout this month. So don't worry, okay? Don't worry if you need to sign a contract and that pertains to your career, to your public status. Just make sure you have this flexibility. You're going to be supported. It's going to be considered that you're actually taking responsibility and showing up, because you say, yes, right now I want to make the beginning, but I want to make sure that we go over the details of this. You will be supported. Where were we? Yes, ascendant Taurus. So Capricorn is your 9th house and Pisces is your 11th. For you, this Mercury going through your 9th house, ruling your 2nd. You might be spending money on a vacay. You might be going abroad, okay? But you might be going abroad too. You unlike Pisces, that the conference is coming to Pisces, you might be traveling to meet some Pisces at the conference, okay? So you might be traveling for a conference, for a gathering, for your activism, and it can have to do with academic conference or spiritual or religious, and you can be having a jolly time there. It's just going to be some discussions about maybe the flight ticket, what's the cost of it, how do I pay for that, but all in all, you're going to be supported, and it's going to eventually pop up on your talk. So it can be like you're representing the challenge that you have buying the ticket and how that pertains to I don't know, the medical restrictions on traveling and so on and so forth. So that is in general something that I predict to be quite jolly for you. And Virgo is ruling your, Mercury is also ruling your 5th house. You're going to be having a lot of fun. Yes, there are going to be some non-spontaneous stuff, but it's only in your favor. And the conversations are going to have a deep impact on your future that is actually positive. So I actually am very satisfied with this Mercury retrograde. There's going to be some touch on your 8th house, okay? So if you're getting like a position in the academia that requires you to go to conferences, then you need to negotiate perhaps your life insurance or your travel insurance. It's very likely, okay? You need to like, hey, you're supposed to be traveling abroad. Let's take a look at your insurance and let's renew something. And that can end up being a story of how, let's say, health insurance for travelers is changing or needs to change, and so on and so forth. Ascendant Gemini. So Ascendant Gemini, Capricorn is the 8th house, Pisces is your 10th house. For you, Mercury is going, your ascendant ruler is going in your 8th house. This is where this can be a bit more tricky, because 8th house is also what we swipe under the rug, and here you are going under the rug to bring that in. You've swiped you under the rug, okay? So this pertains to what do we swipe under the rug? Something that's too overwhelming for us to deal with. And here, there can be some relation between taxation. If you're running a business, okay, and your career, this is your career, then perhaps you have been needing to have a conversation with your accountant, and you've been withholding that. Now it's like you are being brought to your accountant, okay? It's like you must call your accountant. You must have this conversation. But all in all, you see that when you tend to this, even though it can be overwhelming or traumatic, or the things of the 12th, the hidden things, the depth, the this, the that, it's heavy. But you will see that as you attend into this, there can be even some mercy or compassion towards you, and you're being rewarded tremendously for attending to this. Take a deep breath. Even if somebody is being called to you, take a deep breath, because until around February 5th, things will begin to resolve in your favor. Ascendant, And of course, it can be you getting a promotion, there's a joint assets with your partner or your business partner, then you're like, oh, we need to have this conversation again, and so on, with the inheritance, and la 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 la. You tend to that, and you see that all in all, the demon is not that scary. And that's it. That's it. This is Mercury. I would not expect that I would kind of like this Mercury in Capricorn, because from just, the observation, it was like, yes, Mercury is going to go through Capricorn. It's heavyweight. But now when I think about this and I see that it's being so supported, then even for those ascendants where it is heavyweight, like it's going through your 12th house, going through your 8th house, there is much support around this. And the demon is not that scary, even though it can be funny sometimes, but it's not that scary. Also, Gemini ascendant, all I have to say is Mercury is also going through your 7th house, which all in all is also quite supportive for you. And again, if you don't have anything lethal on your own natal chart connected with the 22nd degree, then it's very likely not, going to be affecting you in a lethal way. But that's just something. This is just a transit where Mercury stations to go direct, that you want to make sure you're attending to yourself, you're taking precaution, you're not putting yourself through unnecessary danger, and so on and so forth, in as much as you can tend to it, of course. So yeah, this is the end of this video. I hope you have enjoyed this. It's almost 3 hours. Very informative, I hope, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.